a ring out of clamps, and I went ahead, I just made myself just a quick compass here with a couple of pencils and a stick that was 16.5 inches. And because what happened is it was 16.5 inches from end point to end point, or from outside edge to outside edge, but it was like 18 inches at the corners. So I just kind of found the spot, I kind of eyeballed it and centered it on each side, and then I just kind of freehanded an arc. Took it to the bandsaw, cut it out. Let me lean it up against the wall here so you can see it, because I can't really get that far away. My arms aren't that long. It is not perfect, but I don't need perfect. What I do need is for it to fit inside of my barrel, which is an issue. You'll remember we have like a 12.5 inch diameter lid, and then this is 16 something down here in the middle. So I'm thinking I'm going to find a way to cut this, not on a joint, but on a new joint, right? And then I'll find a way to mount it outside of the barrel so that I can figure it all out. I'll put it in the barrel as two pieces, reassemble it in the barrel, and I think I'm going to start off by just putting it right about in the middle of the barrel and just shooting some of these self-tapping screws with these nice big fender washers into, you know, the end of each of the sections, and hopefully that'll be enough to keep that from imploding. I think that'll probably do it. So we're going to do a test here very soon, as soon as I figure out how to separate and reattach this piece. And when we do, man, have I got a mess to clean up over here. Doing that without a shop vac just makes the mess even worse. We're going to try something here. I went ahead and split this in half right in the center of these two sections. And you notice that little metal piece. What these were some old L brackets that came with just some furniture or something that we bought years ago. You know, you always hang on to stuff like that. I put them in my big vise, flattened them out, and basically shot a couple of, these are little deck screws. I built a deck a few years back, and I used the hidden rails. You actually screw the rails to the trusses, and then the boards sit on top of the rails, and you run these little screws through to the bottom, so there are no screw holes on the top of your deck. Keeps it nice and smooth. And so they're great for wood. They really grip. They got a lot of thread on them, and I put those in there. And this thing is pretty darn sturdy. So I think what I'm going to do is disconnect one side of each of them, and then I'm going to put it into the barrel, two pieces, and then we're going to reconnect it. And wish me luck. I hope this works. I have the frame inside of my can. You can see where I put it back together with the bracket and a couple of screws. Next up, I'm going to get the top put on it. We're going to get the hoses hooked up, and we're going to see how this helps, or even if it helps. Hopefully these, I had to cut those down a little bit to make it fit. Obviously, you know, I rounded it out. Hopefully they're strong enough with the glue. If not, I may have to come back and put a bracket at each of the intersections, but we'll find that out. Let's get set up and do a quick test. Here we go. I'm going to flip the vac on, and then we're going to cover the end of the tube and see what happens. All right, you saw what happened. The bottom of the barrel down here, this ring, you can kind of see these fake looking rings around the outside of here, these convex sections. This is where the first frame sets. It pulled in at the bottom. I'm thinking I'm going to loosen up the first frame. I'm going to drop it down and fit it into this bottom section because they kind of set right on this lip. I'm going to fit it into this bottom section. I'm going to make another one and put it into the top section, and I think that will stop the implosion, because as soon as I turned the suction off for the vac, boom, it popped right back out. It looks good. If I look behind it, there's no dent in the back of it. So I think this may be the trick. One other thing I may do, just depending, they actually are setting very nicely on this lip, but I don't want the thing to get cattywampus in there and then allow it to implode. So I still may come back and shoot the fender washers and the self-tapping screws through there to hold everything in place. But let's go ahead, drop that one down, and get started making a second one. I made another ring, and you'll notice this one has 3 metal braces and 3 wood braces. I was using wood braces, and all of a sudden I got a funny noise on my saw, and check it out, my belt has just come apart. So I made a note of the model of my saw. I'm going to get online, order a new belt. So basically on this one, I just kind of held it over here, and I just cut it on a curve on the blade on my table saw. And now what I'll do, so I got 4 of those wood blocks made. I was using them for reinforcement instead of glue. So I went ahead and just bent 4 more brackets and put them on there. What I'll do is I'll loosen up one of these brackets. I'll be able to put this down inside the barrel, and then we'll put the bracket back on, and the bottom one is in. This is the top one. We'll see what happens. We'll do another test. This is how I get these into the barrel. I just remove one of the clamps, just take the screw out, and then I start articulating it, kind of squeezing it together until I can get it down to the size small enough to fit into the hole. I get it down into there. I go to that section there that sort of bulges out, and I'll sort of open it back up and work it together, and I'll push the two pieces here and here together. Once they're together, I can align the hole and put the screw right back in, and that's how the clamp's working, or the frame's working. I've got the frame inside the barrel. You could take a look right there and see there's the screw hole lined up. All I gotta do is put the screw in. It will be locked in place. I had to cut a little piece off of this section because it was, it was just a little too big, but now it's got a nice tight fit right in that little area there. I went ahead and put braces down below on that frame. So we're gonna get the screw put in there, and then we're going to put this barrel back together and do another implosion test. We are ready for our next implosion test. As I covered the end of the hose, you might have noticed a little bit of flex around the center of the barrel. I was super surprised that it wasn't more than it was, but I think the frame is keeping it from being able to pull together. Very happy with that. I think this is going to serve me well. It is now time for me to fire this thing up and start cleaning the shop because I have got dust all over the place. I've got the backer board in behind my shelf. It's setting on the shelf, and there's a 30-degree angle underneath of this collet rack, and it's just kind of jammed up under there. So, it's not loose. It's a pretty tight, pretty snug fit, but I haven't put any screws in it yet. I need to locate the studs in the wall behind it, and then we'll shoot a couple of screws in and make sure it's, attached well to the wall, and then I can start hanging stuff on it. The way the stud's laid out, I was only able to hit 2 studs. The other stud is behind the lip on my breaker box, and I didn't want to cover that up. I've got a screw here. This is a very long screw, probably almost 3 inches, probably 2 3/4 inches long. It's got a lot of thread, a lot of bite. It is a flathead, but that's not an issue. I went ahead and countersunk it. You can kind of see I've got it just slightly below the surface. That way I can put something right over top of it and you'll never see it. So now's the time to clean the shelf and start mounting stuff on it. I was going through my chucks and all of the jaws, and I found a couple of small issues. This jaw, for example, I got tons of screws. I could put that right to the wall and it would never come off. That's not what I want. What I'm looking for is more of a stud. Threads on one end and, maybe like a flathead screwdriver end on the other where I could thread it into the wall, and then I could just hang those on that. And really, if I could just get some stud, I may end up cutting the heads off of screws if I can't find anything, and just using my Dremel tool and putting my own slot in it. The other thing is, if you take something like this chuck, that's a lot of weight. That probably weighs a couple of pounds. I need something to hold it up. And what I'm thinking is something substantial, like, let me pick that back up, like maybe an L hook, okay, but a thick one that I could put into the wall. And if it's too, sticks up too far here, I could always cut that off with my Dremel. But I need something that I could slide it on and set it on, and it can't slide off of. So we're going to look for some hooks like that at the hardware store. Same thing goes for this. This is not as heavy, but some type of a long hook that I could just mount it with. So bottom line, I'm not ready to start mounting stuff. I think, I want to do this right. I want this to be nice. I want this to be organized. So I'm going to make some notes. We're going to hit the hardware store. Next time we can get out, we got to be careful with everything going on right now. But we're going to hit the hardware store and get some of the right hardware to mount this stuff to our board. I've had another great night in the shop. I cannot complain. This has been awesome. I used the vacuum, the shop vac, to clean up the shop. I had it on for probably 20, 25 minutes. No issue with implosion. A couple of times I caught on stuff and it all suction was at the end of that tube, and it was stuck to like a tabletop or something. So that worked out great. I think that's going to be good enough for me. I'm really happy about having that area set up over there. A little bit more to do. We'll figure all that out. I'll get the hardware that I need, there's no, if I'm going to do it, let's do it right. And it's not going to be all that expensive. I can go to the local hardware store and pick up. I'll take, you know, one piece of my chuck jaw with me, and I'll take, you know, the measurement of my chuck, and I'll figure it all out. But that's it for me. I'm going to call it quits tonight, guys. I've had a great evening in the shop, and wow, it's just time to take a break. This weekend, I think what we're going to do is tint those windows. I've got the tint over there. I need to get it out of the shop. I'm going to put it on the windows and pitch the rest of it. It's just some leftover stuff from some windows I did in the house, you know, to keep the sun from bleaching out the carpet. But you guys have a great evening. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I will see you again very, very soon.